ಕಳೆದ ಒಂದು ಶತಮಾನಗಳಿಂದ ಬಹುಶಃ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕವಾಗಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕವಾಗಿ ತೀರಾ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದವರಾಗಿದ್ದಂತು ಬಹುಕೇತ ಇಡೀ ಶತಮಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹುಶಃ ಆಗಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಗಳು ಒಂಥರದ ನಿರ್ಲಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯ ಇದು. ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಪುಟ್ಟ ಕಸಬುಗಳು ನಾವಾಯಿತು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಸಬುಗಳಾಯಿತು ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯ ಕಳೆದ 25 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕವಾಗಿ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕವಾಗಿ ರಾಜಕೀಯವಾಗಿ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕವಾಗಿ ಬಹಳ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಗತಿಯನ್ನು ಕಂಡುಕೊಂಡು ಬರುತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಈ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಒಂದು ಸಮಗ್ರ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯನ್ನ ಸಾಮುದಾಯಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯ ಕನಸುಗಳನ್ನು ಇವರು ಇಮ್ತಿಯಾಜ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಂತೆ ಕಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಉದ್ಯಮ ಮತ್ತು ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾಮರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಛಾಪನ್ನು ಮೂಡಿಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ದೃಢ ಸಂಕಲ್ಪದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಇಂದು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭಿಸಲು ಹೊರಟಿರುವಂತಹ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಚೇಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾಮರ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯ ಇದರ ಉದ್ಘಾಟನೆ ಈ ಶುಭ ಸಮಾರಂಭದ ದಿನ ಇಡೀ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ರಶೀದ್ ಹಾಜಿ ತಮಗೂ ಹಾಗೂ ತಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪದಾಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಅನಂತ ಅನಂತ ವಂದನೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳು. ಬಹುಶಃ ಮುಂದಿನ ಒಂದು ದಿವಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಸ್ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಇಂದಿನ ಒಂದು ಗತ ವೈಭವದ ಒಂದು ಇತಿಹಾಸವನ್ನು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಬರೆಯುವಂಗಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಯಶೋಗಾಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದಿನ ಈ ದಿವಸ ಬಹುಶಃ ಒಂದು ಮೈಲ್ಗಲ್ಲಾಗಿ ನಿಲ್ಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಖಂಡಿತ ಅನಿಸ್ತದೆ. ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಐತಿಹಾಸಿಕ ದಿನದ ಕೀನೋಟ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸಲು ನನಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳು. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಕೀನೋಟ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾನು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಆಯೋಜಕರು ನನಗೆ ಆದೇಶಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಮುಂದಿನ 2 ಮಾತುಗಳನ್ನು ನಾನು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳು ತಮ್ಮ ಅನುಮತಿಯನ್ನು ಸಹಕಾರವನ್ನು ಕೋರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. Way back in 1987, when we started the Bearys Welfare Association in Bangalore, I must tell you that we didn't certainly have certain lofty objectives, nor would we have a dream of a day like this. We never imagined that probably a day would come where a backward-looking community like Bearys would be having certain forward thoughts in the field and making some spectacular strides in the field of education, commerce, and things like that. And today probably is a day for us to look back with certain amount of pride and satisfaction, and also look forward with prayer on our lips, with resolve in our heart, and a collective hope in our soul that inshallah we too shall march step for step, stride for step, along with this great nation of ours, whose evolution as an advanced society in less than a decade from now is almost a certainty. There is no doubt at all anywhere in the world that India is going to be a superpower very soon. Irrespective, I'm not talking about a political comment at all here. Now, I don't have to say many specifics because Imtiaz covered most of the things in the thing, what I could have told in my keynote address. But before I hit upon the keynote address, I would like to say just a few things, even at the cost of being repetitive or cost of being cliched, about the Bearys. We Bearys are a small community of 14 or 15 lakhs spread along the length and breadth of Karnataka. Though we have a spread outside of this coastal land, one thing very specific about us is that wherever we are, irrespective of our place, we carry a bit of this land in our heart. And we have very clearly wedded to the soil and the culture of this land. And that's a very important point that I want to make out. Now today history tells us, that historians tell us that the Bearys history is a little older than Islam's history, because the traders of this part of the coastal Karnataka used to trade with the Arab merchants even before the origin of Islam. And as Islam advented, taken over by or attracted by the lofty tenets of Islam, where the pompless life and a classless society, we probably are the very first Muslims of India to have, or the community in India to have accepted Islam anywhere. Now we have no doubt that by origin, a lot of things said about why we are Bearys, and we have no doubt that our origin is a trading community. And we are a trading community by origin, by birth. And if you look at the history of the last century, or the century of 19th century, I'll say till the end of 19th century, the history is resplendent with references to, the glorious references to the Bearys past. A lot of things said about the number of businessmen and almost 97% of Bearys kind of a thing. And one important point that I want to make it there is that when rest of the India probably had not even had a concept of import and export, the Bearys had a consummate ease in doing import-export business right then. It's very, very little communities are involved. And another point probably Imtiaz missed that I'm just covering up for him is that way back in 1906, when one of the first banks to have started in this district was the Corporation Bank, the Canara Banking Corporation. The respected Khan Bahadur Abdullah Haji Qasim Saab. He started that, and you should see the objective that he had written. He had talked about Swadeshi in 1906, where the concept of independence was still not there. Gandhiji came on scene 12 years later. That is when in the objective of that, if you see, and we must copy that, he talks about Swadeshi. We are putting a first step for Swadeshi, and that is a kind of an inheritance that we have. But then that is the end of our glorious saga. And subsequently, if you look at the history of the 20th century, we have been satisfied, or we have satisfied ourselves by playing second fiddle to the community. ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಒಂದು ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಗತ ವೈಭವ ಕೂಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯ ಇಡೀ 20ನೇ ಶತಮಾನದ ನಮ್ಮ ಚರಿತ್ರೆಯನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದು ನೋಡಿದರೆ ನಾವು ಬಂಟ ಜೊತೆ ಕೃಷಿಕರಾಗಿ, ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣರ ಜೊತೆ ತೋಟಗಾರರಾಗಿ, ಬಿಲ್ಲವರ ಜೊತೆ ತೋಟಗಾರರಾಗಿ, ಕೊಂಕಣಿಯರ ಜೊತೆ ವರ್ತಕರಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಸಾಮರಸ್ಯದ ಸಂದೇಶವನ್ನು ಹೂಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಶಯವಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ವರ್ತಕರಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೆಸರು ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ಉಲ್ಲೇಖಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಎಡವಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು. I'm just saying that where is it that we made a mistake? Of course, the slide said that because we did not partake in education, probably we did not do much in, but education was not the importance then for business. Remember that today education is an importance of business. And those days the Vaishya community and Brahmin community were two different communities. Brahmins had the education and the Vaishyas did the business, and that it's only today, thanks to the knowledge revolution, that these two things have collapsed into one. But then education, as much as I have thought about the reason, the one thing that occurs to me is that probably we suffer from a very severe identity crisis. We were neither the Malayalis on one side, nor the Bhatkalis, nor anybody. And there was a lack of unity among us, and then we failed to organize ourselves as one community. And I'm not trying to take and think. In 1987, when we formed the Beary community, there was such a reservation about the word Beary. It was almost a repugnant, it was an offensive word. And thanks to the seed that we sowed in that, and I'm not really taking the credit because plenty of work was not done in Bangalore at all. I said that we didn't even have that objective. The work was done back home by you, and thanks to that today, we have been able to restore our identity. We have been able to come together in a meaningful way as one community. We have been able to wake up to the bewildering rapidity at which the development is taking place around the world, and especially in India. And we have been able to today, Alhamdulillah, march towards progress in a collective way. And look at the thing, we could not have imagined that 30 years back. Could we have imagined that a small community like ours will have two universities? The Chancellor is sitting right here, Abdullah Kunjisab. We have two universities. We have a number of professional colleges, hundreds of other colleges and schools. And we have countless books, literary thing, and we have our own academy. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, ಭಗವಂತನನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಾಹನನ್ನು ಸ್ಮರಿಸಿದ್ರು ಸಾಕಾಗದು. ನಾವು ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿಯ ಚರಿತ್ರೆಯನ್ನು ನಾನು ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ, ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಗುರುತನ್ನು ಕಂಡುಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ಫುಲ್ ವೇಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಒಂದು ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣವಾದ ವೇಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ನಾವು ಸಂಘಟಿಸಲು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾದವು, ಅಂದಿನಿಂದ ಬಹುಶಃ ನನಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಆರೋಹಣ ಶುರುವಾಯಿತು ಅಂತ. ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ಯಾಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ, ಟು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಯು ಅ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್. ಐ ಆಮ್ ನಾಟ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ಟಚಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ Imtiaz talked. Let me talk about a couple of management concepts as to where we can hold our platform and take it into our platform and promote. Number one is the concept of collective progress. Because collective progress, ಸಾಮೂಹಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಒಂದು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಆದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಜ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಆಗಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ವೈಯಕ್ತಿಕವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೂ ಪ್ರಗತಿ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾದರೆ, ಆದರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಸಾಮೂಹಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯ ಪಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ತೊಡಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾನ, ಆವಾಗ ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ ಆ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಬಹಳ ಕ್ಷಿಪ್ರವಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. As long as we are an individual, we can develop, we can progress. But when we take a path of a collective progress, that is when the progress is the fastest. A number of examples were given of these communities like the Marwadis, the Jains. Today, it was not said. The Jain community is less than 0.25% and their contribution to GDP is 24%. Look at the Parsis and look at the Israelis. ಒಂದು ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಹರಿಹಂಚಿಯಾಗಿ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯ ಬಹುಶಃ ಮಾನವ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲೇ ಕಂಡು ಕೇಳಿದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ದಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳಗಾದಂತಹ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಯಾವಾಗ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಒಂದುಗೂಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ತಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ತಮ್ಮ ತಾಯ್ನಾಡು ಯಾವುದಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ನೆಲೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ತೊಡಗಿದ್ರು, ಅಂದಿನಿಂದ ಅವರ ಆರೋಹಣದ ಆ ಒಂದು ಚರಿತ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗತೊಡಗಿದೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಭೂಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಡಾಟು ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಸ್ರೇಲ್. 70% of our business is controlled by the Jews. We may have different opinion with them, but ಗುಣಕ್ಕೆ ಮಸರವಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. This is the first thing that I wanted to tell you, that if there is a progress is possible, it is only through collective progress, and collective progress, the most important ingredient for that is a meaningful organization or ಸಂಘಟನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. ಅಲ್ಹಮ್ದುಲಿಲ್ಲಾ ನಾವು ಇವತ್ತು ಬ್ಯಾರಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನುಕೂಲತೆಗಳಿದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸಂಘಟನೆ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠವಾಗಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಗುರುತಿರಬೇಕು, ಆ ಸಮುದಾಯಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಗುರುತಿರಬೇಕು. ಅತ್ಲಾಗೆ ದೊಡ್ಡದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಚಿಕ್ಕದು ಅಲ್ಲಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ಭೂಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಗುರುತಿಸುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ನಾವಿವತ್ತು ಅಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿದೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಸಂಘಟಿಸಲು. ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ತಂಡಗಳಿಂದ ಆಗುವ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಯಾವುದು ಸಮಾರಂಭಗಳಿದೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಗಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಘಟನೆಯನ್ನು ಇನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಬಲಗೊಳಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ರೆ there is no reason why the government of Karnataka will spend crores of rupees on a Kannada Sahitya Sammelana, or why Japan will still promote their education in Japanese, or China will promote the whole idea is to create that unity which comes when your identity is the strongest. And we Bearys, alhamdulillah, are blessed by that. This is the number one thing. The number two thing concept that I want to put in front of you is that what is called as a peer influence. Because somewhere Imtiaz said, I didn't agree with him, that probably because we competed with each other in similar business. But this is now proved to be the most important thing. I'll tell you a small example about the peer influence. Look at in Dakshina Kannada, there are big industries. Abdullah Kunji Saab is here. But how many public limited companies are there? Probably an Abdullah Kunji Saab once had tried for that, a Plama industry had tried. But look at a Gujarati industries, a Jain industries. Every second community has got, every second industry is a public limited company. This is the result of a peer influence. Or look at today Bihar. Literacy rate is less than 25%. But to India's IAS cadre, they supply, contribute almost 25% of India. This is what I call as a peer influence. Look at today, sir, and I was just thinking last night about some of our youngsters like Zakaria and Karnere brothers and all. The earth-moving industry or the material handling industry in Saudi today, I mean, what is the connection between a Beary and an earth-moving industry? But today, that is a peer influence. You start something. And my favorite example almost is the e-commerce companies, the three flagship company of India. The Flipkart, the Snapdeal, and the Myntra. And all of them on top has got a Bansal. You must be knowing. Sachin and Vinny Bansal, Mukesh Bansal, Rohit Bansal. Now these Bansal did not know each other. Baltan is such a small Agarwal Bania community. And that is the beauty and that is the power of a peer influence. And take my word on this, I bet that if tomorrow a Hassana Beary of Bearys community starts an e-commerce industry and succeeds, I bet that in 2 years there will be an Abid Beary, there will be a Muhammad Beary, there will be a Musa Beary who will succeed in that. And inshallah, this is a very important platform that we need to think about for doing this, where we can. And for that, the third important thing that I am coming to is a collaborative effort or the synergy, a concept of synergy. Now what the synergy is simply explained as, if I can produce X and you can produce Y, together when we collaborate under a common objective, we can produce X plus Y plus S. And that S is synergy. And when the entire community or a country works towards a common objective, imagine the amount of synergy that we can do. And that brings me to the fourth concept that I wanted to bring in front of you, is called a mentality of abundance. And this is a term that Dr. Stephen Covey, sir, he coined it, and today it's become a byword in management. Dharala Manobhava. ಬೆಲಿಯ ಮನಸ್ಸು, ಚೆರಿಯ ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲ, ಸಂಕುಚಿತ ಮನೋಭಾವ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಬೆಲಿಯ ಮನಸ್ಸು. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಡ್ಡಿ ಬಂದದ್ದು ನಗಲ ಮಚ್ಚರ, ನಗಲ ಚೆಚ್ಚೆರ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಷನ್, ನಗಲ ರೈವಲ್ರಿ, ಮತ್ಸರ, jealousy. This is a very common human trait. But today, if the Marwadis or the Sindhis or take our own Labbas and the Bhatkalis have been able to cooperate with each other, obviously they are displaying that broad mentality, that mentality of abundance. Not as if they do not have any jealousy. Jealousy is a very, very common human trait. But today, the benefit that they have that has resulted from their collaboration, the benefit that they have been able to get by collaborating with each other far outweighs that mean character of ours. And that is where we have been able to do that. The more the success in business, the more the success that we achieve by cooperating with each other, this mean streak of ours called jealousy and rivalry automatically disappears in a community. And the fifth important thing that I want to tell you is that an atmosphere of amity. Because no progress, no advancement of a community can ever happen in an atmosphere of hatred. We have got to do all out. It may not be a part of business at all, but we have got to do in the interest of a community. ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸ ಇಸ್ಲಾಮಿನ ಚೌಕಟ್ಟಿನ ಹೊರಗೆ ನಿಂತು ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಮನದಟ್ಟಾಗಿದೆಯೋ, ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಸಂಘಟನೆ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಹಿತದೃಷ್ಟಿ, ಈ ಸಮಾಜದ ಹಿತದೃಷ್ಟಿ ಅಥವಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಹ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಸಹಕಾರದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲೂ ಆಗಬಾರದು ಅನ್ನಂತಹ ಒಂದು, ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಗಳ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ. The number of schools that we started those schools predominantly for our children. Today, alhamdulillah, our school cater to every community child. Our schools have stopped being a vehicle of our own progress. They have started becoming a melting pot of amity, of different cultural students come into our school and study. And this is what has to happen in our business too. And last but not the least that I want to stress upon is that for anything, for any organization to thrive, for any community to progress, there has to be a very, very high objective. As I told you, Sangatanige, it is better to have the smallest group and a strong identity. But when it comes to an objective, you've got to have the loftiest ideal, a loftiest objective, and there cannot be a better objective than take this country forward. Because I again tell you that insert it somewhere. Probably let's end this with the Janaganamana tonight to begin with, that whatever we do, let's remember that India first and India foremost. This is something that we've got to remember always. Because no matter how we become big, Imtiaz said that our community has to thrive. No matter how big our community becomes, we will not become big enough if India remains small. And this, the example of America today, because it is beautifully summed up by Barack Obama when he got his second term, and I never tire of repeating that little piece of his speech. And he said in his own words, America is not America because of its world-class institutions. America is not America because of its infrastructure. And America is not America because of its military power or the advancement in technology. And he said America is America because of the Americans. And he continued saying that while every individual American works for his own advancement, collectively Americans work for America. And this has to be an ideal for all of us. And if you really notice that I said a lot of things about the Bearys, our organization, and I never talked about business or industry or the Bearys, and I purposely didn't do that because a lot of it was covered. But I would like to sum up my entire advice in just one sentence. That the 6 points that I told, I'm going to repeat this, the elements that can really take us forward as a community quickly is that a concept of collective progress, a concept of, the second one that I said is not the abundant mentality, the collective progress, the Sangatane that we talked about, and we talked about the peer influence. And third is a collaborative effort that we do. And the fourth one that we talked about is a mentality of abundance, and then an atmosphere of amity, and then finally keeping a very lofty ideal of keeping India first in every thought of ours. And I said these things because if these are the things that is adapted into our BCCi, BCCi can be a platform really for taking us really forward, because business is going to be the single most important vehicle of progress, and knowledge is going to be the single most investment in business. That means that knowledge-based business, look at the history. Earlier on, it was the priesthood that governed, and then it was the military ruling, and then became the political ruling, and mark my words, the next set of ruling is going to come from the business community. And it's not for nothing that today the largest democracy of the world and the wisest democracy elected a businessman as a president. And this is not going to be just an exception. This is going to be the order of the day. Alhamdulillah, thank God that we have woken up at last and we have set ourselves on the path of this. And I am sure, and that is the reason that I said, and I agree with Imtiaz fully, that this inshallah shall be a turning point for our community. And I said in the beginning, as I said in the beginning, that if ever a history of this time and our history of the glory and the splendidness is ever written, this day is going to be marked as the most historical day. And I'm so glad that I had the privilege of delivering the keynote address for this. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you all of you. You've been a wonderful audience. Allah bless. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.